money is an incredibly emotional thing for most people. It's one of the number one causes of stress, just not knowing. So I think that it's really about just like making sure that you know what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, we can go as simple as pro bono financial planning. People in the community can just show up and just ask their questions, no matter how simple.
Do you think money takes up more life space than it should? On this show, we discuss with and share stories from artists, authors, entrepreneurs, and advisors about how they mindfully minimize the time and energy spent thinking about money. Join your host, Jonathan Dio, and learn how to put money in its place and get more out of life.
Hi, welcome back. On this episode of the Mindful Money Podcast, I'm going to begin to introduce you to some of my firm, EP Wealth's leadership. Today, I'm chatting with Jennifer Lee. Jennifer is a certified financial planner, that's a CFP, a licensed enrolled agent, think tax, and a chartered advisor of philanthropy. She's the director of financial planning at EP Wealth, which is a registered investment advisor with 45 offices nationwide and over $31 billion in assets under management, of which I added when I joined the firm 3 years ago, a small little piece of that. She leads a team of over 30 financial planners at EP Wealth, and as they work with individuals and families to sort of navigate the goals and complexities of their unique financial situation, she specializes in helping clients articulate and advance their highest aspirations for self, family, and social impact. She's a huge financial literacy advocate and the champion of classical music. She volunteers her time to teach personal financial literacy as well as serving on boards for local nonprofits serving young musicians. She usually works behind the scenes, but I wanted to have her on the podcast for two reasons. First, she runs the financial planning department, financial planning being, in my opinion, the most important thing or one of the top two most important things we do for clients at AP Wealth. And second, she is the person who wrote my family's financial plan when I joined the firm 3 years ago. I don't know if she even remembers that, but she was the person who worked with us. I've done spreadsheets for years, but she's the first one to formalize it for myself and my wife and my family. So Jennifer, welcome to the Mindful Money Podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
So first off, where do you call home and where are you connecting from today?
I live in Los Angeles. So I live smack in the middle of LA, literally between the 405 and the 10 freeway, if anyone is familiar with LA. Close to downtown, I would say maybe 10, 15 minutes away. And I am recording this from my home here.
So are you a Bruin?
I am a UCLA Bruin. Yes,
Okay.
I was born, raised in LA, went to school in LA. I am a plant. I have never left.
Well, my son's a Bruin now too, so I guess we're Bruins by family relations. So he's there right now studying away.
Yeah.
I'm curious, growing up in LA, what did you learn about money or entrepreneurship as a kid or young teen?
Oh, very little, very little. So my parents are immigrants. So they're from Taiwan, and we have no family here. We still have no family here because it's too far. It's like a 13, 14-hour flight. And a lot of my family, including my parents, absolutely hate flying. So it was really just my immediate family that's been out here. I mean, occasionally we had people visit, but mostly it was like figuring it out. My parents didn't go to college here. They went to college in Taiwan. My dad did do his master's here. He was in Ohio for a little bit, but really just had to figure everything out on his own. His parents neither set of parents are super, financially literate. But my parents wanted to come here for the land of opportunity, as they say, because there wasn't as many opportunities at that time. And they really hustled. I saw them work extremely hard, 3 jobs just to make ends meet with the fear of layoffs. Every Christmas, my dad would say that, I'm going to get laid off. I'm going to get laid off, even though he's one of the most intelligent people. He went to one of the top universities in Taiwan, which is different than here. You don't apply for school in Taiwan.
Really?
You test into it. So they pick the creme of the creme in terms of like, these are the top students. That's how you get into a school. And so he was well known for that. Yeah, I think he was majored in chemical engineering when he first came here and couldn't find a job in it and decided, okay, I'm going to pivot and became a software engineer, learned it by himself or from other people, like without going to proper schooling for it. And just was super humble. He just did a bunch of jobs, like didn't matter to make ends meet. So I guess you could say there was a lot of entrepreneurship in that sense, but not maybe in the traditional business sense, if that makes sense. He's not technically a business owner, but real estate, big in real
Yeah.
estate,
Yeah.
of
No,
course.
that's a business. That's a business. I'm curious. You said something there that I'm wondering, what did you take out of the message? I'm going to get laid off. I'm going to get laid off. I'm going to get laid off. What did you take out of that? Is there something that you learned
Yeah.
from that as a kid, hearing that all the time?
Yeah. Scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
You got to save every penny you got. My parents were very, very adamant about being financially independent. They were like, there's no money here. Okay. You aren't relying on us. When you're 18, you're out of the house, which kind of happened ish. I mean, not that bad. I mean, they paid for college. I mean, they gave me every opportunity, right? I didn't have any student loan debt. They were big believers in education growing up. They were like, I had a lot of cello lessons, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. I had so many tutorings, things to set me and I have two younger brothers up for success to survive here for sure.
Right. It sounds like and people don't always identify the lessons that they learn, but it sounds like there's a scarcity mindset. There's also probably the importance of hard work. You know,
Oh,
the
yes.
three jobs constantly, that's, I think, a very important lesson. But there's also this almost an intergenerational, hey, we're going to work really hard so that we can give you the opportunity so that you can excel. That's also a lesson that you learn about what you do for the next generation. I want to get to your work at EP, but before we get there, can you give us your career arc? Like, where did you start? How did you get interested in finance, and how did you end up becoming a financial planner?
Yeah, sure. So my major at UCLA was cello performance. You can kind of see my cello case there. My cello's over there. Well, can't quite see it in the camera, but um, my life until even at least 25, if not beyond that, was music. I started playing piano and cello, dabbled in violin for a little bit when I was like 5. I still play, not as much as I hope, but you know, um, yeah. So I thought music was going to be my entire life from growing up. There was no other path, you know. And then I got into college on music scholarships. I tried to change majors. I took a lot of math classes, economy classes, business law, accounting, and decided I did not like any of those things at all. So I went back to music and like really gave it all and tried. And I even applied for a master's in music, but decided at that point that this is not for me. I don't want to take cutthroat auditions. So, for those who are familiar with classical music, it's incredibly cutthroat. I mean, we're talking there may be 2 double bass positions in an orchestra that isn't even the top orchestra. And literally hundreds of thousands of applicants will apply and fly in for those auditions. And even then, your audition lasts maybe 3 minutes if you're lucky. It's crazy. And you make one mistake, if you squeak, if you're out of tune, they hear it right away. I mean, these are like people with incredible abilities to just identify that kind of stuff that I was like, I am not going to put myself through that. It's just way too competitive. And it just made me kind of not enjoy music anymore. So, I mean, I had a couple jobs, it was during the recession when I graduated from UCLA. So I felt like it was really hard to find a job. I was like, I thought, a pretty good school, but apparently not. And so I kind of just found a job in freight forwarding. If anyone's familiar with that, it's all the containers. So I did ocean imports. So literally those big containers coming in through the ports of like Apple iPhones and Amazon or whatever, things that people import to the US. That's kind of a crazy story. I actually applied, interviewed, and got the job all in the same day. And I had no idea what I was doing. But they were a Mandarin speaking company and they were Taiwanese. And I just had a blast. A lot of the people were my age. They were all fresh out of college and spoke Mandarin. So it allowed me to kind of just like reconnect with that part of my heritage. But I did that for like 8 months and was like, okay, I need to stop this. I commuted 3 hours to El Segundo for those who are familiar because I couldn't afford a car. So I took the bus. I think it was 75 cents each way. I had a Bruin discount. So I had a lot of time to think. And so I was like, well, first thing I need to do is cut this commute. And so I found a job in Santa Monica, which is originally where I'm from, in a real estate company doing bookkeeping for them. Tiny,
Mm.
tiny little firm. There were 5 employees, I think, including the owner. So learned a lot about, bookkeeping and paying bills basically for a company. And that's when I started learning about the CFP. And I heard it on NPR in my long bus rides. I was like, what is this thing? And I think a lot of it was my own fear. I just felt like I didn't want to make up mistakes with my money. A lot of it's my parents' upbringing, like money is scarce. You better do right by it. And also just like having to see so many people fail during the Great Recession, and a lot of the mistakes that they made were not their own in the sense that they just weren't educated. Like they didn't know they were going to have the things that happened to them. And so a lot of it was first selfish reasons of educating myself. And so I Googled the CFP, found that the UCLA Extension had classes, and I was like, whoa, this is in my backyard. So I got a job closer so that I could do night school, basically. So every week I would go to class. I'm a very in-person class person. I don't love self-study. And I took each class and I was like, oh my God, why doesn't everybody know this?
Mm.
To this day, I would say, I'm like, why doesn't everybody know this stuff? It's so important. Enjoyed every moment, every class that I've taken. And then halfway through the classes, I started to look for a job. And so at that point, I decided, okay, I do want to do this as a career.
How old were you?
I was 24.
You had tried 2 or 3 different kind of career paths and
Yeah.
decided this is what you want to do. So 23, 24. That's good. That's
Yes.
good. Keep going.
Yes.
Sorry, interrupted.
Not at all, please. And so at that point, I decided, okay, but I would want to be strategic about what kind of job I applied for. And I knew I didn't want to do sales. So I was like, I'm not working for an insurance company. I am not going to work for a bank. I don't want to sell product and stuff. I don't think I even fully understood what that meant at that point. I think I was looking for a registered investment advisor at that point, but didn't even know what that really was because it's not quite as ubiquitous as it is these days.
Yeah.
So EP Wealth Advisors was one of the very few firms that existed in LA that I at least could find. And I applied for the job. Cheryl Ray, who is our director of employee enrichment, interviewed me along with another gentleman, John Ertman, who has had many roles at EP, but he's now retired. But he was basically HR and the CFO, a bunch of hats we had to wear at that point. And I was so excited to find that there was a financial planning position where I didn't have to do sales, but I could just learn the art, the craft. And that's how I ended up here.
Wow. This was your first financial planning role out
Yes.
of your CFP.
That's
Great.
right.
I think you got really lucky in choosing financial planning. I think you got really lucky in finding EP. My favorite industry pundit is Nick Murray. And he basically tells us, he says lots of things. But one of the core things he says is there's only 2 values of financial advice. The first value is getting a financial plan written. And the second value is keeping people on financial plan when it's uncomfortable. So it's all dedicated to financial planning. And you run, I think, one of the best financial planning departments in the best companies in the country. I really do believe that. So can you tell the audience, the Mindful Money audience, about the importance or the power of financial planning?
Yes. Thank you for saying that. I am very, very proud of the 35 plus. We're bringing on some new planners. We're always growing. So just so everyone knows, I started off as a financial planning associate, clearly in that role. And there were only 2 people in financial planning then. And to see the evolution, this team has been a dream to lead for sure.
It's like 2.5, since I joined 3 years ago, the company is 2.5, 3 times bigger. I mean, it's
probably, I believe that for sure.
Yep.
For sure. So the impact of financial planning, oh my goodness, I would say like We always talk about power of compounding and how exciting it is on the investment side, but that only works if you actually invest and you stay invested, especially I think so pertinent right now. I know it's a
Yep.
scary time in the market and there's a lot going on, but volatility is also normal part of the markets. I know it's been hard to swallow, but I would say the same is about advice. So the decisions you get to make today, not what happened in the past. I mean, we of course may need to fix some mistakes we have made in the past, which is okay. But what's more important is the decisions we make going forward. So, how we decide to save, how we decide to spend our money, how we decide to do anything with our money makes huge, ramifications in the future, both for the good and the bad. And I think what we do here is first educate people. I'm never going to tell you what you have to do. Right. You're still the boss. The client is always the boss. I'm here to inform and help you talk through decision making on, okay, does it make sense to do XYZ or ABC? We can definitely talk through that. There's always the numbers aspects of it. So, one of the things we do here, Jonathan alluded to before, is build an actual written financial plan. And so, what's cool about that is we take your base case situation if you did absolutely nothing and we run what if scenarios.
Mm.
We always talk about I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the market's going to do. But when you run a financial plan, this is as close as I think you can get within reason, of course, of, okay, if I decide to buy this bigger house, if I decide to sell my business or give to charity or whatever that you're thinking about, we can run a what if so you can see the long-term ramifications to help you make informed decisions. And I absolutely love this job because I feel like I get to experience people's lives 1,000 times over because I
Yep.
see so many versions of people's lives and I get to be part of that, their experience, their wishes, their pains, and be alongside as life changes and how to navigate those situations that we can't even predict.
One of the things I like that clients report back after going through the financial planning process is a sense of not that they know what's going to happen, but that whatever happens, they can figure it out. You run 5 or 6 or 7 what if scenarios and you go, okay. So markets don't average 9, they average 7. This is the outcome then. Okay, inflation isn't 2.5, it's 4. This is what happens then. You're employed now, but you lose your job. This is what happens then. Right. So whatever the thing is, you can build a what if for it. You can kind of see that, there's levers I can pull. There's trade-offs I can make. There's decisions that come to the fore that enable things to be okay. And then people just, they have this, they feel better about it. Can you touch on just some specifics that I think are top of mind right now? Inflation has been for a couple of years, but how does financial planning account for factors like inflation environments or return environments over like a 15 or 20 year period?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I know it's hard to distance ourselves from what's happening right now because we're literally living and experiencing it now. But the way we look at it is creating some assumptions that can withstand time. And when I say time, I don't mean the next year or two. I mean what can happen over the next 30 to 40 years, because oftentimes that's how long, if not longer, that we are running financial plans. Depends on your age, of course. Average plan, we do project to age 100 to be conservative. So you can imagine you want to make sure that you're using a reasonable assumption going forward. And so we work with our investment team to come up with these every single year on what inflation should be in the long term. Same thing with rates of return and, what's reasonable numbers that are conservative, that are achievable too in the long run. So that's what we do in the base case. Now, to your point, if a client is concerned about what if inflation is higher, okay, let's run it higher. How does the plan work? The plan is going to assume you do absolutely nothing different. You never change anything about your life. You don't actually cut down spending a little bit during those rough times, which is just not true, right? Most of us will adapt if we know things aren't in the best spot right now. You may not take that massive family vacation this year. Maybe postpone it a year or two until you feel more comfortable, the markets settle a little bit. In some cases, clients can still afford it, even the market's horrible. They're still 100% on the Monte Carlo. But if it gives you peace of mind to to not do something right now and to delay it until later, that's okay too.
Yeah. Can you kind of explain to folks who haven't gone through the planning process how the plan keeps up with changing life circumstances?
Yes. So we do update the financial plan, as life happens. I mean, for those who have run through it, you're going to notice that it's like a big calculator at the end of the day. And so if there's not really a tremendous amount of change in your life, there's no real reason to continuously update it. Instead, what we do is we write an action plan. I like to call it the one-page financial plan. It's more like 2 or 3 pages, but one page sounds better than 80-page report. So the one-page financial plan is basically a plan of action. I like to think of it as the financial roadmap for the next year to year and a half of like, what are we actually going to do? So again, bringing it back to how markets are very volatile right now. Well, there's very little we can do from a control standpoint of what the market decides. But there are so many other aspects of your financial life that you can make decisions on. So if it's super volatile, does it make sense to do a Roth conversion right now? That might be something where if the market goes back up and swings back up, guess what? All of that is tax-free growth that could potentially be in your financial plan. It's just talking through these volatile situations, but going back to the action plan of what's doable, taxes, right? How we decide if we contribute to a traditional retirement account or do we contribute to a Roth or do we do capital loss harvesting, right? If you actually have losses, we like to come to like take the paper loss and bank it for later to use, whether now or some other time, depends again on what the market does. I think there's an opportunity in every type of life-changing circumstance, but it's really following that action plan on, well, have you done your estate plan? In many ways, that's actually way more detrimental to you than the market behaving the way it is, because if you do not have beneficiaries listed, if you do not have a trust account, we are speaking in California where probate is extremely expensive, then you could be costing yourself, your heirs, a lot of money, time, and pain, because if you go through the court system, it takes an incredibly long time. I think the average is like 2 years or something to even get access to the money that you might need or your heirs might need to live on. So these are all things within our control. Yeah, so I think those are some of the quick examples.
I think every planner has kind of maybe their pet thing that they like to do, but is there something if you look across the planners, what are some of the biggest picture items that apply the most to most people's lives? Like you mentioned Roth conversions. I know that's something that it's been the rage for like a decade to talk about Roth conversion. Are there other things like that people should be thinking about?
I think it sounds really easy, but it's not that easy, is consolidating accounts, simplifying your life. Over a life, it's just like stuff in the house. We accumulate it. And to a certain extent, we're maybe all hoarders, not on purpose. It just happens because we forget there's so much stuff in our house. So it's the same thing about accounts. We may open different bank accounts. Maybe we had different employers over our lifetimes that, oh yeah, I forgot I had that 401k. And it's been sitting there in cash this whole time because I didn't know I should have invested it. So I would say, as easy and simple as that sounds, consolidating, simplifying, know where everything is. It's not only for yourself, but also if you have a partner in life, if something happens to you, your partner knows what to do, or your children. If your children or your heirs are the ones who are going to inherit the money, tying it back to estate planning again, that's actually one of the most difficult things. You can have everything done correctly. I have all my estate documents done, and it is still hard. It is still work to administer an estate. You still got to go to every single custodian to be like, hey, here's the death certificate. How do I get the money out? What can I do? Depending on how complex, of course, the estate plan is. That's probably my one piece of advice.
This is sort of a positive spin on that. I had a really close friend, someone I know for 25 years, just discovered that a job he left 25 years ago. Like I just met him. He went off to this job. He was there for like 8 months and he deposited maybe $4,000 into this 401k. 25 years later, he gets a notification like, hey, you've got $40,000 in this thing, because he just put it in the S&P fund and left it for 25 years. So
amazing.
Pretty nice little deal. It's better than a 20 in an old coat, right? Can you just talk really briefly about not just the financial benefits? You do a Roth conversion, you save on taxes, you maybe can maybe you can retire a year earlier, whatever. What are some of the emotional benefits? Because you get to see lots of
Mm.
clients with lots of advisors. What are the emotional benefits from financial planning?
Well, I think it goes to peace of mind financial planning. That's what we call it here at EP. It's empowering people to be in the know, even if the news isn't as good, right? Even if we have to say, okay, I know I wanted to retire at 55, but, you know, 45 years is a really long time for money to last. So I think it's at least knowing you're making an informed decision. We joke with other advisors where they just don't want to hear from a client say, guess what I did? That is probably the worst thing, right? To hear. I'm sure, Jonathan, you can relate. Right? It's how
I
about
bought a vineyard. You what?
exactly. So it's like, okay, how about before you do that, you say, hey, Jonathan, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? So I think it's really just knowing and what are the things we can do before we're up against a wall and there's nothing that can be done. That's when you're trapped, right? I mean, there's very little options. And so I think we want to inform people of, okay, how long do you have until a decision needs to be made about however you change your lifestyle?
Yeah. This is maybe a harder question. So, mindful money, we speak to folks that may not actually need an advisor or may not need a financial. I think everybody needs a financial plan. What is the threshold of complexity that
Mm.
should drive someone to think about getting a professional financial plan done?
I think it depends because everyone's comfortability with financial literacy is a huge component. Some people love learning this stuff too. They could be CFPs themselves,
Yeah,
right?
totally. Totally.
Now, at the same time, it's the doctor operating on themselves, right?
Right.
Money is an incredibly emotional thing for most people. It's one of the number one causes of stress, just not knowing. So, going back to your previous question, that's another emotional aspect of just, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm not in full control. And I don't know if something happened to me that I'd be able to do something to make sure that I'd be taken care of and I can take care of my family. So, I think that it's really about just like making sure that you know what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, we can go as simple as pro bono financial planning. So, as an example, when I got my CFP, the first thing I signed up, even actually before I got my CFP, in LA here, we have the LA Public Library System. And every single October and April, we call an October Financial Planning Day and April Financial Literacy Month, where no strings attached. People in the community can just show up and just ask their questions, no matter how simple. It doesn't need to be super comprehensive. I know that's what we do here at EP, and it's definitely our area of specialization. But even a question as simple as budgeting or your credit card debt or whatever you're facing, you should seek advice if you're not sure. And so a lot of us here will do pro bono work through various nonprofits where you can just ask your questions. And so to me, there is no threshold. I've met people of all walks of lives that have come to us for help there.
I totally agree. Anyone that has questions doesn't know the answers. I guess I'm looking for the person that's going to hire the professional, like that's going to come to EP and have EP do the comprehensive,
Oh,
and
got it.
that's income
Okay.
for lifetimes. Like, how complex does that need to be? And what are some of the metrics? What are some of the things that people would think to themselves? Yeah, I really do need to have a professional look at this.
Yeah. So what we do here at EP, I mean, our minimums are 500,000 of investable assets, specifically here. But like, I think what you can do is have what we call a thumbnail sketch of a financial plan done. So
Yeah,
maybe it's not the full blown, I got to spill all of my life to you on exactly what I have and don't have. But I think it's really just showing, okay, can I make these things work? And a lot of times when we do that thumbnail sketch of a financial plan, there's often opportunities that present art
for
itself.
sure.
So even things that you may not think of that you might need help, a financial professional may uncover, hey, here's something you could be doing
Yeah,
to hopefully improve and really maximize your wealth.
yeah,
So I don't know that there's an actual threshold for complexity because again, it depends on the person's knowledge base of it's like, what is it that keeps you up at night? Are
yeah.
you concerned about something happening? And that's when you should seek advice. and ask, okay, what can we do to kind of calm some of my nerves about the situation? And again, take it into your control of what can be done. So it can be as simple as life insurance. Something happens to me. I'm the breadwinner of this family. My entire family relies on me. So how much should I get? How long should I get? Should I get a term insurance? Should I get a whole life? Or there's a lot of different types of insurance products out there. And so helping you make these good decisions to protect your assets and your family, I would say you want to engage a professional in.
Yeah. So thanks for the sort of peek into financial planning specifically at EP. I know you're also very active in EP's charitable work. And I know that given the fires in LA, that EP has done a lot. Can you just touch on some of the initiatives and some of the things that you've done in the LA community since the fires?
Yes. So as soon as, unfortunately, the devastation of the fires occurred, our HR team and the charity initiative got together to create a wildfire task force, basically. So I think there's maybe 7, 8 of us on the team to kind of do this. So one of the first things we did was, bless everybody at EP. We have people across the nation who are like, are you okay? What can we do to help? And, a lot of them are not in LA. So we came up with a firm-wide initiative here to come up with, okay, what are the organizations and types of organizations we want to support? And so we narrowed it down to animal shelters, food insecurity, and housing. And so we did some research because I'm sure a lot of people, especially in LA, but even across the nation, were bombarded with advertisements of donate here, do this and do that. And so we kind of did a lot of the homework here internally, at least what was meaningful to EP, in which we decided to pick 3 organizations. So we contacted LA Food Bank. We are working with the American Red Cross team as well as SPCA LA for the animal shelters, as we have partnered and volunteered at a lot of these organizations in the history of EP. And so what we did was create links for them in which our employees, again, across the nation, anybody could donate. And we are matching 1-for-1 up to $200 per employee. You can do the math. We have over 500 employees here at EP, so it can be quite the dollar amount. So big thank you to our finance team for approving the budget to allow us to do this good work. We've also created Amazon lists through the organizations on what are the things that they need most. So for the animal shelters, of course, a lot of it's canned food, and, through the American Red Cross, it's a lot of like hygiene kits and just basic necessity things, diapers, you name it. So that's kind of one aspect. We also set up our own internal pro bono committee in which it's called EP Gives at epwealth.com, in which anybody, friends, family, anybody that you know who has been unfortunately devastated and affected by the fires can, reach out to us, and we will connect you with one of our financial planning team members to help you through it, because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where do I even begin? It's an incredibly traumatic experience to go through. And so we have been helping clients as well as just our employees, our friends and family. It doesn't really matter. There's no threshold. It's no strings attached. There's no financial commitment whatsoever for us to do this pro bono work. And then the last piece we're doing right now is working on, this is more for the LA teams because it's local, but actually organizing volunteer events. So we probably will do a volunteer event through the LA Food Bank and some other organizations here to just get our hands dirty. Let's do some cleanup here.
So when you do the volunteer events, is it just the team members, or do you invite like your local client base to come out and sort of help in some of the bigger things?
Yeah, we can. We definitely can. It depends on the organization, how many, because EP Wealth, the Torrance team alone, headquarters is like 150 people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Some nonprofits may get a little overwhelmed. So, we for sure are going to do it with our employees, but we always invite family, friends who want to come and do it, and they're free. It's already organized. It's kind of nice to just be able to show up and not have to worry about the logistics.
Yeah. You should tell NorCal about it. We're 30 people in NorCal, but I'm sure some people can head down pretty easily. My son's not at UCI. I could take a chance to go visit him.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah.
Send an invite. Real quick, I ask this of every guest. I want you to take everything we've talked about and just make it really, really simple for someone that's listening. Can you call out just like one financial planning strategy that almost anyone can use to create better outcomes for their family?
Yes. It sounds, again, very simple, but I like simplistic financial planning. Spend less than you make, you know?
I think that is the iron wire upon which all other financial planning works. It all hangs on that one thing. That's the thing to do, spend less than you make. What's one thing that folks might currently be doing that's leading them away from those cherished financial goals they should just stop doing?
I mean, I guess we can talk about budgeting. I know people don't love that word. Some people really hate it, but it can be helpful to just know where your money is going and really reflect, is this what I really value? Because the way we spend is the way we value life and the world.
Yep.
And being like, is this really the way I want to spend my money? And I think, taking a look at that. I think these days it's a little easier, especially if you're a credit card user. These credit card companies are so good at making the pie charts showing you where your money is going. So it doesn't have to be as daunting and challenging as it used to be to budget.
Yeah. So the thing to do is to spend less than you earn. And then the thing to not do is stop overspending.
That's right.
Basically. So spending is very much at the core of your planning mentality. I think that comes from your childhood, right?
That definitely does.
That's very honest.
For sure.
Before we wrap up, one personal question, and that's, what is the last thing you changed your mind about?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. What did I change my mind about? I guess this is kind of a big one, but for a long time, I wasn't sure about having children.
Woo! That is a big one.
I know. It is a really big one. So the consideration there is we're exploring, let's just say.
The Mindful Money audience appreciates your openness about such a big thing. That's beautiful. More Jennifer Lees in the world is probably a good thing. Tell people how to connect with you. Where do they find you? Social media, how do they email you, etc.?
Yeah, so I'm not a big social media person, but I am on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. And I'm on somewhere on EP Wealth's page, I'm sure. JLI@epwealth.com. I have one of the shortest emails at EP.
That's nice. And we'll make sure it's all in the show notes. I really appreciate your time coming on the podcast. And thanks for all the great work you do for clients, but also in the community. I much appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at mindful.money. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/mindfulmoney. We'll be sure to read those out on future episodes.